Hello and welcome to another fun-filled nonsense retrospective. I'm your host as always, Rick. Joining me equally as always is Devon.
Hello. Just a brief warning today. I've got a bit of a stuffed nose. If I sound weird, I apologise.
And with a bit of luck, he won't actually be ill by the time this comes out. These are being recorded in hand because I'm going to be away when this comes out. Today we're doing another top 5 list, but before we get into that, let's go with our good old time-honored tradition of the nonsense asinine hypotheticals. And do you have one for me today?
I do. Are you ready for a silly one?
Let's go.
You get any dinosaur that ever existed as a fully trained pet and or mount. What dinosaur do you pick?
Ooh,
Very specifically, by the way, dinosaur. Not extinct creature, dinosaur.
Yeah, so you can't pick a pteranodon because they're pterosaurs.
What's a pterosaur? Why is that different to a dinosaur?
It's different to a dinosaur because it's just the tech. I learned it when I was a kid, and like Dinosaur magazine was a thing, and they just made a point of saying this technically isn't a dinosaur. Like half, and then it makes it so that like half the things that are in Power Rangers are not dinosaurs.
If it looks like a dinosaur, then it's a dinosaur. If you type in pterosaur into Google, you get a weird fucking disc.
Okay, starting with a P.
Oh, you mean a pterosaur? Okay, yeah, you mean the flying thing. Yeah, no, that's a dinosaur. You can fuck off.
Yep. I also don't know how big it is, so...
Fucking massive.
Yeah. I think the Archaeopteryx is the biggest one of those, and it's the closest one to a modern bird in terms of, like, being evolutionarily advanced. It might be the best pick, but in terms of, like, training, like, you can't go much better than the Dromaeosaur, which was renamed to Velociraptor for Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Because the actual Velociraptor is, like, the size of a chicken.
Yeah, and you know what? We'll just jump straight to it. The actual Velociraptor, which is the tiny little chicken things, was going to be my answer, because I wouldn't want one. I'd want a pack of trained fucking Velociraptors.
Cool. Yeah, I go with that. So I got movie Velociraptor, and I just have one, and you've got historical Velociraptor, and you got a fucking ton of them. I like that. Today we're talking about video.
No, you've got to ask me a question, Rick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Today we're talking about video game villains. And this is going to frame my hypothetical to you. We're doing top 5. Do you have an honourable mention that's a villain that doesn't stick around long enough to make your top 5 list?
Yeah, no, is the answer.
Yeah.
You gave me prep time for this question, and it wasn't enough prep time because it was like 8 o'clock in the morning when I got it. So I was like,
sure.
I was like racking my brain, and I was like, there's no people who are good villains that just get... Any villain that gets wiped out too early is just to establish another villain. They're not good villains. They're fucking pawns and narrative devices. And no one's going to say fucking Kai Leng.
Yeah. And he sticks around too fucking long as well.
Yeah, I know. I just pulled out a villain who is universally like hated, but not because they're well written or easy to hate, but because they're shit.
Yeah. Like, I think a good answer for this would be like Matriarch Benezia, because she's gone as soon as you meet her, essentially.
Oh, yeah, I didn't play that game, did I?
Yeah.
It's one of those where I'm hand waving the question. I'm sorry. I also want to apologise for jumping down your throat because it sounded like you were segueing into the actual episode proper.
Yeah, no worries. You're sick. I'm giving you a free pass. My answer for this is Ketheric Thorn. He is basically the villain of Act 2 of Baldur's Gate 3, and if he'd have stayed for the entire game, maybe he'd have been on the list, but I think he's used to great effect. He establishes himself better than any of the others, but he fizzles out as soon as you have your final confrontation with him.
You got a very loose definition of doesn't stick around for long.
Sure. So, we get into our actual top 5. So, who's going to be your number 5?
My number 5 is Riku from Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay. Like, this was... I've not played Kingdom Hearts, and I'm vaguely aware that he does a bit of a heel-face revolving door.
Yeah, it's the worst. In the first game, he is quite clearly an antagonist. He is a secondary antagonist, perhaps even tertiary, but, he is a they build him up as the rival friend character in the first opening act. Great descriptor, me. You know what I mean.
Yes, I know what you mean. Like, the Thingy Island where you've got 3 friends, and he's the one who's the edgelord.
He's the one who's the OC, so therefore is allowed to stick throughout the entire game.
Yep.
You got a friendly rivalry over who's going to ask Kyrie out, despite the fact you're 10. And throughout the game, he gets corrupted by the darkness, and he proves to be an efficient antagonist, mostly because that you've got a personal link. Sora doesn't want to fight Riku, doesn't understand why Riku is fighting him. We're all meant to be on the same side, and we're meant to be buddy-buddy. At the end of the game, Riku very firmly has a face turn and then stays face. They like to play with it in future games, where they're like, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? He's clearly a good guy. Whenever he does evil shit, it's not actually Riku. It's a clone, or a robot, or someone possessing his body.
Yeah, it's a Doom bot. Or Lord Xehanort just going, yeah, I'm gonna stick my hand up your ass and wield you like a puppet.
If you like, dude. Who's your number 5?
My number 5 is rather simple. It's good old Bowser. He's got a fantastic design, and not even burning to death is enough to stop him.
Yeah, he becomes Dry Bones Bowser.
Yeah, for an entire game, and then his son necromancies him back to life. It's great, and I think the only reason I've not placed him higher on the list is because of Nintendo party game effect. He spends so much time as a punch clock antagonist and kind of also friends with the heroes.
It's very unclear, I get you. It's why in the new Mario movie where they just make Bowser, well, he's just Jack Black. He's just Jack Black. There's no really getting around it, and Jack Black fucking ate that role for all he was worth, and God bless him for it. But
yeah, absolutely.
Making him just a bit of a goof who's head over heels for Peach, it makes perfect sense. He's not a bad guy, he's just an idiot.
Yeah. Like his legions think he's like the ultimate evil overlord, and he enjoys playing metal music as his main theme tune, but he's not actually that villainous. Yeah, he's just a ruler of an opposing kingdom.
Yeah, and the lore of the Mario movie is so fucking weird, so let's not get bogged down, I guess.
Sure. So, on that, who's going to be your number 4?
In a very similar fashion, it's going to be Dr. Neo Cortex from the Crash Bandicoot series.
Oakley dokley?
Yeah, he's a mad scientist, and he basically evokes all of the tropes that you would expect. His boss fights are always really lame because he's just a science guy.
Yeah. And like all the other villains are the actual boss fights.
Yeah, they have a fighting chance. Like in Crash 1, he just flies around on the jetpack and shoots you a bunch, and it's like, yeah, makes sense. In Crash 2, you chase him through space in a makeshift jetpack. Crash 3 is actually interesting because he's got the Ooga Ooga mask, and they play with Ooga Ooga and Aku Aku. I realise this might sound like gibberish to anyone who doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah. The tiki masks that I didn't know were a thing until I watched a playthrough of a Crash.
Yeah, like they've been a thing since Crash 1 too. It's not like they pulled them out their arse or nothing. But yeah, the transition from Crash 1 to Crash 2 is weird because he's played very serious in Crash 1, in the sense that yes, he is torturing animals. In Crash 2 onwards, he's played as I'm still this super smart scientist, but I'm also kind of an idiot.
Yeah, it's as if he's had his villain decay because of being defeated by one of the monsters that he's raised as a test subject.
It's really egregious in Crash 4 because Crash 4 starts off where Crash 3 ended, and with Cortex stuck in the past, and it just has the sub-boss from Crash 3. I've forgotten his fucking name. Entropy, that's it. He just treats Cortex like an idiot, and it's like, this... I guess it makes sense because they turn Cortex into a semi-good guy in that game, but...
Sure. Isn't he, like, super playable as well in that one?
Yeah, cool, yeah.
Okay.
Like, the only bad guy in that series who becomes playable is Dingo Dial, who you can believe has a face turn because he didn't really seem all that into it back when he was a bad guy. He just seemed to be into it because he was getting paid. I think he became a fireman or something. But anyway, I digress. I'm giving it to Cortex. I love Crash Bandicoot. Cortex is a decent bad guy for the Crash Bandicoot series. Who is your number 4?
My number 4 is Kefka, and I'm going to try and skirt around things as much as I can because I know you've not played FF6 and you might want to at some point.
I mean, I know Kefka wins.
Like, the big thing is halfway through the game, Kefka wins, he gets everything he wants, and the rest of the game is just kind of like a sour grapes attempt to knock him off his perch.
I don't think it's sour grapes when the thing he wants is world destruction or world fucking. You might have won, but you're only going to enjoy it for a few months because we're going to kill you, dickhead.
Yep. Yeah, like the second half of the game is just getting the band back together because Kefka's fucked everything up. And he just steals every scene that he's in until the end of the game where he's just had his, like, emo evolution and he's just like a complete nihilist. He's just lost all of the humor in his voice and everything. But before that, you've got stuff like Son of a Submariner, There's Sand on My Boots. He's got his laugh.
I was going to say, it's iconic, so iconic that Flowey stole it.
Yep. Pretty much. And he's just a fantastic murder clown. So who's going to be your number 3?
My number 3 is going to be Steve Haynes from Grand Theft Auto 5.
Okay. Not played GTA 5 properly myself, so you'll have to expand on it a bit for me.
Well, there are several it's weird calling antagonists in Grand Theft Auto because technically speaking, you're the bad guy.
You're a villain protagonist.
But the beauty of Grand Theft Auto 5 is the antagonists aren't good guys. They are claiming to be good guys, but they're not. The other antagonist from Grand Theft Auto 5 is that I would point to is Devin Weston, but I didn't want to pick him because he has my name. So
sure.
So I've gone with Steve Haynes, who is the very much cookie-cutter, absolute perfect example of a corrupt CIA agent. Sorry, FBI agent, technically.
Okay.
He's a dick. Like, he's just a dick for no reason. You could argue he's doing it as an intimidation tactic at times, but he's just a dick. Such a dick.
Yeah.
Oh, I fucking hate him.
Yep.
One of his early cutscenes, he when you first meet him, in fact, the main character you play as is Michael, and you have a bit of banter with him with Steve Haynes, and there's just a cut-off point where Steve Haynes goes, "This is business now, none of that joking shit, because I will kill you." And then Michael's like, "Okay," and I'm just like, this is like, I've shot. It's the fucking video game problem of I can shoot countless police people, but I can't shoot this motherfucker in this cutscene because the story needs to happen. But it makes even less sense when Trevor gets involved because he's a psychopath who kills people for less.
Oh yes. I'm vaguely aware of Trevor.
Anyway, it goes to Steve Haynes for me. Who's your number 3?
My number 3 is one who I would be shocked if you know about this guy. It's Luther from PSO2. Everything that goes wrong in that game is pretty much either his fault or the fallout of something that you fucked with. He is a scientist who was a member of like the ancient precursor race, and he's pretty much the only surviving one. He can possess bodies. One of essentially the Elite Four is stated to be clone number 2 because Luther stole body number 1.
Okay.
He eventually gets so obsessed with the fact that you're thwarting him at every turn that he absorbs the very darkness that he's playing with as a toy and becomes literally the kind of antagonist that he's been trying to create for fun.
Okay.
And even after you defeat him, when you get to the throwback episode where everyone is Jolters, he's like one of the most he's one of the biggest bros that you've got in the Jolterverse because of how much of a dick he is in the real timeline.
Yeah, fair enough. I obviously can't comment. I've never touched the game.
Yeah. He was fantastically voiced by, in Japanese, he's got Cloud's voice actor, and in English, he's got Billy Kametz.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
He's Ferdinand von Ayer, who passed away. Maruki.
Yeah, no, I'm once you said Ferdinand, I'm familiar with his work, but there's a lot of voice actors who I just don't know their names.
Yeah. I really like his characterization, and he's one of these characters who you just love to hate once you're involved with the story. But that's about it from that one. Who's going to be on number 2?
Rick, something you learned very early on in this certain game series is you do not pursue Lu Bu.
Yeah, even I know that line.
Yeah, from Dynasty Warriors series, I'm putting Lu Bu up there because, well, the thing is he's an antagonist for about a third of the game because the time period that the Dynasty Warriors games go over, he doesn't make it to the Three Kingdoms period. The Three Kingdoms aren't a thing by the time Lu Bu gets offed.
Sure.
I wanted to put a Three Kingdoms person in here because I'm a fucking nerd about that shit. And
Yeah.
fuck if I'm putting Dong Zhuo on there. And here's here's the problem: the late game antagonists are difficult to name as antagonists because depending on what force you're playing, they might not be.
Yeah, depending on like what alliances you have, like there might just be one of your allies or even someone you're playing as.
Yeah, like I'm talking specifically about the games that have a linear story, which usually you can play as one of the one of the Three Kingdoms, and depending on what kingdom you play, depends on who you fight and who you don't. Whereas Lu Bu, Zhang Zhao, and Dong Zhuo are all antagonists to fucking everybody.
Yeah.
In the earlier games, Lu Bu was a big fucking problem because they used to buff him ridiculously high when he was an enemy officer.
Yeah, and that's why you do not pursue Lu Bu.
Yeah. You could probably find several voice clips at this point of "Do not pursue Lu Bu." Most of them are just, "Hey, just avoid that part of the battlefield for a while because Lu Bu's there."
Yeah. Just accept that your territories are getting fucked. You can retake them later. But
back in those games, territory wasn't a thing, so it was fine. But yeah. How about you? Who gets your number 2 spot?
My number 2 is another Final Fantasy guy. It's good old Emmett Selk.
Okay.
Otherwise known as Hades. And yeah, this might be a bit annoying, but I really like the guy's character arc. That he's very definitely a guy in pain. He sees you as a reflection of his friend and maybe potential love interest from the past, but obviously someone who he's lost. And it is massively to his detriment because he wanted this to just be another Omnicide by the book, but you're there. And then you get the answer arc where you get to see him at his best. And then finally, when he gets his memories back as a Force ghost, he goes, "Oh shit, I was a right cock, wasn't I?"
One of the things I hate most about Emmett Salk is not the character so much as the fan base, because I don't know if you were there, but we have a mutual friend who really likes 14, and we were talking. Emmett Salk, when he's a straight up dickhead antagonist, when you bump into him, is a Nazi. He has Nazi ideologies. He wants to extinct all races but his own because his own one is perfect. That's the crux of it. I simplified it slightly, but that's basically what it is. And explaining it like that, I was like, this is why I don't like Emmett Salk. Don't get me wrong, I think he's a well-written character as far as Nazis go, but I explained that to this mutual friend, and they went, and I quote, "Yeah, but if they see the other races as inferior and lifting up the plane to a better society," I went, "Actually stop for a second and repeat what you said, because what you just said is super fucked."
Yes. Like, it's one of those things where he has legitimate reasons to see the current races as inferior to what he knows a true, complete unsundered can be, but it feels super disingenuous because we've only ever been sundered. We don't have the perspective of what it would be to be literally twice the amount of person that you are.
Okay, so I just want to clarify for people, what Rick means there is, from Emmett Salk's point of view, he is correct. However, from everyone else's, he is super not.
Yeah. It's he's the equivalent of, like, if Superman came down and went, "Oh, you're all pansies," and just wanted to conquer the earth.
I think that's a bad analogy, but whatever.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but yeah, I think he's great because he's got that arc between two expansions, and unlike Kefka, who you can play that game in a weekend, Emmett Selk had to wait 2 years to get the full story on this guy.
Okay, but it doesn't take 2 years to play. I get what you're saying. If you're playing along with, because that's the nature of an MMO, they need to drip feed content to get people to keep playing and giving them their £10 a month or however much it fucking is.
Yeah. But that's enough about Emmett Selk, the one who people tend to vote for because he's good looking and funny. Who's going to be your crowning number 1 of video game villains?
My number 1 is from a very recent game. It's Odin from God of War Ragnarok.
Okay.
They took Odin from mythology. They morphed him to fit the God of War universe, because God of War universe, you need to have the big head honcho god be the biggest dick.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, they did did a really masterful job of having him portrayed as a sympathetic character when you first meet him. The first thing Odin does when he shows up in game is he sits down with Kratos and has a chat about how do we fix this issue we have between us.
Yeah, that's a pretty good opening for portraying your character as reasonable.
Yeah, and then Kratos, being unreasonable, says, leave me the fuck alone, but Odin has a safety buffer in the form of Thor is sitting right there. And when Kratos tells Odin to fuck off, Odin's just like, okay, and tells Thor not to kill him, and then fucks off.
And is that when Thor kills him and then brings him back?
Yeah, Thor kills him and brings him back in one of the most epic scenes. I flipped my shit when I saw that, because Thor beat Kratos, like, straight up.
Yeah.
Also, like, in that initial conflict, you get, like, Kratos has got the Leviathan axe, which is just Mjolnir, but an axe and ice flavoured. And you got that epic moment where he chucks it at the same time as Mjolnir's chucked, and they meet in... It's so fucking cool, I'm just saying. But yeah, Odin's quest has always been the same whenever he's been interpreted in anything, and that is he wants knowledge. And his whole deal in this game is there's a crack. He wants to know what happens to gods when they die, because they know what happens to what happens to mortals.
Yeah, because they're in charge of it,
more or less. And there's also this crack in Valhalla. It's a weird crack in the sky, but it's difficult to explain because I'm not too good with my words today. That he's investigating, and he needs Loki's help. And by the way, Loki is Kratos' son. And
yes,
yeah, a lot of things happen. The game ends with cementing him as a fucking irredeemable piece of shit because he kills Thor.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much more of a villainous... How do you trump killing your own dudes because you don't care? How about killing your own son?
Yeah, because he's an annoyance.
Well, because Thor and Kratos' final fight ended with Kratos extending an olive branch, and surprisingly Thor took it, and that's what made Odin go, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
But yeah, Odin gets a fate that is befitting a douchebag of his caliber, and the game ends. I haven't played the new DLC. I'm probably not going to reinstall God of War just to play it, but I'm aware that there's a new DLC. I don't think Odin's in it, because it wouldn't make sense, but hey ho diddly do. Rick, who's your number one?
My number one is Harbinger from Mass Effect 2. Okay. If you have played this game, you know the good old phrase, direct intervention is necessary, or assuming direct control. The longer you draw out the fights in which Harbinger's eye is on you, the more times you have to fight a Harbinger-empowered champion. He specifically taunts you as the player, or sorry, Shepard in particular, because his eye is on Shepard. The opening of Mass Effect 2 is Harbinger fucking up the Normandy just to kill Shepard. And he makes it his secondary goal to get rid of Shepard again after he gets resurrected for the game. And I think he is a fantastic, just looming presence. And he's a great, I think he's a great implementation of show don't tell, because not only is he there taunting you and just being a presence, he actually is just getting in there, making something that was just a jobber normal mook into a like mini boss level threat.
Yeah, they kind of shit on that a bit though, don't they, when in Mass Effect 3's multiplayer they did the Collectors as an enemy and the Harbinger buff still happens. It's not called the Harbinger buff, but it happens.
Yeah, fair enough. I stopped playing when the Collectors became essentially a faction that you could be against, I think.
Oh, that's fair. I kept playing Mass Effect 3's multiplayer until it fucking died.
Yeah, and because you had Reapers, Cerberus, and Geth to begin with, was it? And then Collectors was like the fourth villain faction that they brought in.
Yeah,
you got like expansions.
Yeah, they brought them out with the Citadel DLC because you could fight Collectors in the arena on the single player campaign. Sure.
And then they brought in non-villainous Collectors that you could play as in the multiplayer as well. If you managed to roll them.
Yeah, they were called they were technically Protheans, but they were Collectors.
Oh, yeah, clearly Collectors. They used the Collector models.
Yeah, but the idea was that they were severed from the Reaper network, so they had their own minds again, but yeah, it was silly.
Yeah, post-Protheans.
Yeah.
Apparently, the final Reaper that shoots you in Mass 3 is meant to be Harbinger, but the downside is you never get that really confirmed or denied in the regular story, because they just skip over it, and Harbinger is just essentially gone from Mass Effect 3, because all the Reapers are there, and all the Reapers are more of a threat than just one.
Yeah,
but Harbinger felt more personal.
So you saying that pretty much, it's the same people as people going, oh, Marauder Shields is Garrus, and you're indoctrinated. Oh.
Yeah.
I just want to say, okay, there might be people listening to this who do not understand the outrage and disappointment everybody had at BioWare for the end of that fucking trilogy.
Yeah, where the last enemy you fight is just a marauder that happens to have shields, so they called him Marauder Shields.
Yeah.
He tried to save us from the ending.
Yeah, there was that, and then, like, there was the indoctrination theory of the entire last mission is Shepard's actually indoctrinated, and the people you're fighting are people you know trying to stop you from being an indoctrinated murder hobo machine, because that's kind of Shepard's deal. And it's like, even if that was correct, which I don't subscribe to that theory, I never did, even before they fucking quote-unquote fixed the endings, even that would have been shit writing.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've seen Shepard, we've seen the heroic willpower, or anti-heroic willpower if you're a red flavor, and we don't want our main hero to succumb to that. We don't think that would be a satisfying end, so we just reject that theory and substitute our own of, yeah, it is what it is. They just couldn't write an ending for shit. But that's it from our lists. What was your favourite one of mine?
Oh, they're all shit, Rick, so I didn't like any of them. I'm joking, of course. I do realise my sarcastic voice sometimes sounds like a regular voice, so I apologise. Despite not playing the game, I'd probably say Kefka.
Yeah, and he's possibly one of, if not the most iconic Final Fantasy villains.
I mean,
I think
everybody...
Sephiroth might edge him out.
I was about to say, I think everyone sings the praises of the One-Winged Angel piece of music, but fucking hell, Kefka's Dancing Mad 20-minute epic is nothing to be scoffed at.
Yeah, like Dancing Mad has like actual operatic phrases. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they're all essentially different pieces of music that all feel like they do fit together into that. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, they chopped it into 6 parts just so they could fit it onto fucking music scrolls in FF14.
Yeah. And I picked Kefka over Sephiroth because Kefka actually is real, whereas Sephiroth is not.
Oh, Sephiroth is fucking weird like that. We don't worry about it. Fucking
yeah,
spoiler.
Sephiroth died like a chump.
I was gonna say fucking spoiler for anyone who's experienced FF7 for the first time via the remake.
Well, the remake's even more fucky because we don't know what's going to happen. But yeah.
Oh, how about you?
So yeah, Kefka's your favourite of mine. My favourite of yours is going to be Lu Bu because even though I've not played many of the games that you mentioned, I do not pursue Lu Bu as a meme.
One of the best things is Koei learnt about the meme by Dynasty Warriors 8, because in Dynasty Warriors 8 there's an achievement for defeating Lu Bu, and it's just called, okay, you can pursue Lu Bu.
You specifically can pursue Lu Bu.
It's dumb, I love it.
The honourable mention for your guy goes to Cortex, because I think he's also a pretty fun villain.
He's also voiced by Clancy Brown, and that's always a plus.
Yeah, is that Mr. Krabs?
Mr. Krabs and Lex Luthor.
Ah, yeah, sweet. But yes, that's about it from us this week. If you like the video, you've got the comment section down below on YouTube, and if you're listening via one of the many audio platforms, you can instead send us an email, which will go to nonsensereviewuk@gmail.com. Once again, that is nonsensereviewuk@gmail.com. And if you made it this far, as always, you're our favourite people. It's going to be a goodbye from me.
See you next week, guys.